Most police officers never hear this conversation. Not in the police academy, not during field training, not in an in-service class. And that's unfortunate because understanding it changes the way you see your profession. When you become a police officer, you don't just pin on a badge. You enter a system. Now, before that word makes you think of politics, bureaucracy, or something negative, that's not what I mean. Every profession has a system. Hospitals have systems, airlines, the military, schools have systems. Police departments are no different. A system is simply the collection of people, policies, training, supervision, expectations, traditions, and decisions that work together to shape how an organization operates. Now, whether anyone calls it that or not, you're already working inside one. That's important because most police officers spend their careers believing that success or failure depends entirely on individual choices. Work harder, learn more, stay out of trouble, find good mentors. Those things absolutely are vital, but they're only part of the story. You see, every day you're being influenced by things that are much bigger than you. The academy you attended, the instructors who taught you, the supervisors who coached or didn't coach you, the policies you follow, the informal lessons you picked up from experienced officers, the conversations after difficult calls, the things your organization rewards, the things it overlooks. None of those exist in isolation. Together, they become the environment where policing happens. That's what I mean by a system. And once you recognize it, you begin asking different questions. Instead of asking, why did that officer make that decision? You might also ask, what was that officer taught? What expectations were reinforced? What opportunities existed to develop better judgment? Those questions don't remove personal responsibility. They add organizational awareness. And that distinction matters because officers make decisions. Organizations help shape how those decisions develop over time. Now, let me say something to the young officer listening. One day, you're going to ask why something is done a certain way. You may hear, that's just how we've always done it. Listen respectfully. Experience matters. Tradition has value, but don't let that be the end of your curiosity. Every organization should be able to explain why it does what it does. Not because someone questioned authority, but because thoughtful organizations examine themselves. That's professionalism. Now, let's move up one level. If you're a corporal, a sergeant, a lieutenant, something changes. You're no longer influencing only your own decisions. You're influencing someone else's development. Every coaching conversation teaches. Every correction teaches. Every briefing or roll call teaches. Every time you explain the why behind a decision, you're helping shape the professional judgment of another officer. Whether you intend to or not, you're contributing to the system that the next generation inherits. And if you're an instructor, never underestimate your influence. Most police recruits won't remember every slide from your presentation. And presentation is another word for another conversation. But they'll remember how you taught them to think. They'll remember whether questions were welcomed, whether mistakes became learning opportunities, whether professionalism was demonstrated, not just described. Instruction isn't simply about transferring information. It's about helping people develop judgment they can carry into situations you will never see. That's a tremendous responsibility. Now, let me speak to police executives. When people talk about the system, they often talk as though it's something beyond anyone's influence. I don't see it that way. Systems are not fixed. They evolve, sometimes intentionally, sometimes without anyone noticing. The question isn't whether your organization has a system. It does. The question is whether that system is producing the kind of police officers, supervisors, instructors, and leaders you intended to develop. And how would you know? That's not a criticism. That's a leadership question. The strongest organizations don't assume they're getting it right. They remain curious enough to examine themselves. Not because they're weak, because they're professional. And finally, to the attorneys listening, individual actions deserve careful examination. So do organizations. Understanding how an organization develops its people doesn't answer every legal question, but it does recognize something important. Police officers don't develop in isolation. They develop within an organization. Understanding that organization can help explain why certain practices endure, why others change, and why improvement is often more complex than it first appears. So, can you challenge the system? I think that's the wrong place to begin. The first question is simpler. Can you recognize it? Because once you recognize it, you stop seeing policing as nothing more than individual decisions. You begin seeing the connections between leadership, instruction, supervision, policy, culture, and professional development. You begin understanding that organizations are teaching every single day, even when no one is standing at the front of a classroom. And when you see that, you also realize something else. Systems are not beyond thoughtful examination. They're not beyond improvement. Every meaningful improvement in policing started because someone was willing to ask a better question than the one everyone else has accepted. Not with arrogance, not with blame, with professionalism. So, wherever you are in your career, whether you're the newest recruit, a field training officer, an academy instructor, a chief of police, or a civil rights attorney, never stop asking how the organization itself can become better. Because policing isn't shaped by one decision. It's shaped by thousands of decisions made over time inside a system that every one of us inherits. And every one of us has the opportunity to improve. I'm Tom Loglisci. Thank you for listening to Police Praxis Audio Briefings.